Hey guys, MetalJesus here, and today we're going to be taking a look at the quirks and features of the IBM WorkPad Z50. This was originally released back in around 1999, and if you're looking at this and thinking, oh, that's a really cute little laptop, that's not how it was marketed. It was actually marketed as a handheld PC or like an ultra portable. And the reason why that's important is because this was built for a very specific consumer in mind. Typically that would be a CEO or maybe a marketing manager that's traveling a lot and needs something between a full-blown PC, but they don't want a hardcore laptop. Portability is really what they're looking for. And because of that, this device has some features that are pretty wild to check out. Now for me, thinking back to the year 1999 or 2000 doesn't really feel that long ago, but when we look at this up close, it's amazing how much has changed. And the wild thing is that some of the things that this has built into it and is able to do, I would actually like to see brought back in laptops today. So let's go ahead and unbox and dive deeper into an IBM WorkPad Z50. Before we get started, I do want to give a quick thank you to RePC in Tukwila. They found this WorkPad in their storage unit, put it aside because they thought it might make a cool video for my YouTube channel. So thank you very much, guys, for letting me borrow this. All right, so let's go ahead and unbox the IBM WorkPad Z50, and you can see this is model number 2608-1AU. I'm always amazed at what gets donated and traded into RePC. As you can see here, that this is an opened WorkPad, but somebody kept the box and all of the styrofoam and all of the stuff on the inside. I mean, it was kept in remarkable shape. Now, it's scuffed and well used, but it still works. But we're gonna go ahead and put that aside for now and dig a little bit deeper and see what it actually came with. So these portable devices came with a version of Windows called Windows CE. Now, unlike the normal version of Windows that consumers could buy and put on their big old PCs, CE was sold and configured straight to manufacturers, and it was designed to run on smaller and more minimalistic computers. You also see that there's a second CD here with applications as well as a digital copy of the user manual, as well as ActiveSync, which, if I remember right, was software that was designed to connect your copy of Windows as well as your smartphone, so like your Palm Pilot. And then here's something you don't see very much anymore. It is a user manual, and one that's actually very useful. This one here is over 160 pages long, and it gives you some insight into the design of the thing and who it was meant for. For instance, right off the bat, when you open it up, it outlines exactly what you can and what you cannot do with this. For instance, you see a lot of computer type stuff here, like send emails, write memos, you can record little audio notes, browse the web, print. It also lists play games here, although I don't know how realistic that would be. But then check it out below where it's very clear it's not really meant to save large files or do really heavy multimedia editing and creation. And there is no CD drive in this. I also thought this little welcome message is pretty interesting because, again, it outlines exactly who the perceived consumer of this device would be. So right off the bat there, it's talking about taking us on a business trip. Or maybe you are on the road as a salesperson and you would want to be taking customer orders, things like that. I also think it's interesting how they mentioned that you might be late for the train and you would want to get some work done with this device. Or if you have a couple spare minutes at the airport and you want to check your email. So clearly this was a device that was meant to be sold to business people who are traveling a lot. And then digging a little bit deeper into the box, you have, of course, the power supply as well as a quick start guide. Because let's be honest, who actually reads manuals? Well, besides me. Now let's go ahead and check out the WorkPad itself, and right off the bat I noticed just how light it really is. Its weight comes in around 1,200 grams, or just a little bit over 2.5 pounds. And this had a suggested retail price of around $1,000, which would roughly be about $1,800 today. But let's go ahead and dig in a little deeper. So on this side of the WorkPad, you have an internal modem port there, which is very common if you want to dial out and get on the internet. You also have an earphone jack as well as a separate microphone jack. But then check this out. So this is a PC card slot here, and I noticed that it had something in there. I assumed that it would be a Wi-Fi card. Nope, that is not the case. Inside there was a Toshiba 2 GB hard drive. Now, this was very unusual for the time because this would be extremely expensive because this is not a solid state drive. This is not a micro SD card. It's a physical platter disk, hard disk. And these would have been extremely expensive at the time, but also very handy because these type of devices typically did not come with hard drives at all. As a matter of fact, Windows CE is designed to work without a hard drive. And so whoever owned this probably, I'm guessing, dropped $300 or $400 just to get that extra 2 GB of storage. On the other side of the WorkPad, you have some very interesting things as well. Things you typically do not see anymore, including an external monitor port. So that is a VGA monitor out there where a lot of business people at the time would do presentations at other companies. And so most of the time you wouldn't really connect that to a television. You would actually connect it to a projector when you're giving like a sales presentation. Something else you don't typically see anymore is a compact flash slot that's next to that. You know, today we use much smaller SD cards and micro SD cards, but back in the day, compact flash was, it was a thing that you would typically have. And to be quite honest, I like how rugged they feel, but this typically functions almost like a USB port today, where you might use a USB thumb drive to move files around. Well, back then you would use the compact flash because there's no floppy drive in here either. And then here's something else you don't typically see anymore is an infrared data port. So back in the day, like on smartphones, like your Palm Pilot, you would have an infrared data port on there that was meant to beam information back and forth between devices. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't use this feature a lot back in the day, but maybe some of the people watching this might have. But basically what I was told is that it was really common to beam like your contact information from one smartphone to the next. I don't think it would beam a lot of data, but correct me if I'm wrong. On the back of the device, there's a lock, which basically stops it from booting into Windows. And then there is the battery release. And so let's go ahead and flip it over and check out that battery. Now, this battery is mostly dead. It's over 20 years old, and I'm not surprised. However, a new battery at the time could last up to 8 hours, which is pretty respectable. That right there is where you could get the optional cradle. So if you are back at the office and you wanted to use this very quickly on a larger display or maybe with an external keyboard, that's where you would connect it. If you unscrew this, this is where you can upgrade the RAM, which is very useful on this device because, again, often these would be sold without a hard drive. So everything from the applications to the operating system would be installed and run directly off of RAM. And so the more you had, the better off you would be. And this one looks like it has an upgrade. And then check this little door out. I've never seen this before. Look at this. You actually put in regular batteries in here. This is the backup battery that the WorkPad would use when you were hot swapping the main battery. Again, when you're traveling a lot, you would potentially carry multiple big batteries with you. And these two little batteries here would make sure that the operating system and any documents that you're working on are still saved in memory while you do that. Really wild. Opening up the WorkPad, I want to mention that it's a decent 8.2-inch color LCD screen. I do think that these little buttons over on the side here are kind of curious. Basically, they are brightness up and down and also contrast up and down, which again is kind of interesting how they are featured so prominently on the inside of that display, don't you think? I mean, today they would do all of this in software. You don't really have to mess around with it, but computers back then, especially in the 80s and 90s, you would want to adjust the brightness or the contrast, probably also to save a little bit of battery life. Down on the keyboard side of things, there are definitely some curious things down here. That right there is a built-in microphone button. So you don't have to open up any software. If you just want to quickly record something, you just push that button and you are instantly recording. I guess that would be really useful if you are in a meeting and again, you just don't want to mess around with software. You can just push a single button and start recording all the audio of everyone talking in the room. And then here is something that IBM has been using for years. That is the little red knob. They call it the track point. And what this does is control the mouse on the screen. However, it doesn't really function like a trackpad because there's obviously not this big movement of your finger, and it doesn't really feel like a mouse either. It's its own thing. And you'd think it would be awkward and hard to use, but if you've used one like this, you know they're not actually. It works really well. And then down below the keyboard where your normal trackpad would be, well, there you have your right and left mouse clicks. It's a very interesting design and a way of utilizing the space down below where the keyboard would normally be and the trackpad. And you know, I don't know if IBM still uses these, but when I see it, I definitely think IBM. When I originally started messing around with this, I wanted to try capturing Windows CE directly to my video capture device because, you know, as you can see, the screen is very blurry. It's a little bit hard to see sometimes. And when I first started messing around with this, as you see, I actually have an old school television that has a VGA input, and the display was really not good. I'm not entirely sure what was going on here. I mean, it should work. I've connected other devices through VGA to this television and it works fine. However, I was able to work around it by using this VGA to HDMI converter. And so you see, I can actually output this to my 4K television, which was pretty cool. Now, messing around with Windows CE is pretty wild because it does feel very stripped down, as it should, right? It feels almost like Windows 98, but you know, it's meant to run on these very simple devices. And it's wild too, because there isn't a C drive on this device at all. There's just that Toshiba storage card in there, but it does show as having roughly 2 gigabytes of free space to use. And this kind of blew my mind too. So again, under System Properties and in Applications, you see these bundled applications in ROM. So they're, again, not on a hard drive. They're actually built into the device itself. You have the pocket versions of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Access. We're so used to those being just massive programs that, you know, are huge and take up a bunch of space on your hard drive, and to think that, no, they just all exist in RAM. You don't even need a hard drive. It's really cool. And they seem to work really well. I mean, you're not going to be adding any high-res pictures or video to this thing, but I think they get the job done. In the manual, they advertise that this plays games, and to be honest with you, I don't even know how you get a game on this thing. I mean, I guess you could probably back in the day maybe download something over the modem through a BBS or something, or maybe through the web. But being that it's Windows, it does come with a version of Solitaire, and so my wife is actually checking this out. It's pretty funny because it's a very simple version of Solitaire, obviously, and despite the low resolution and simple graphics, she was actually sucked back into it. She actually played this for quite a while. I was like, honey, we got enough footage. She's like, I know, just one more hand. So that's a quick look at the IBM WorkPad Z50. I don't know about you guys, but I love taking a little snapshot and seeing just how far mobile technology has come in the past 20 plus years. It's wild because, you know, today we've got the iPad and it's infinitely more powerful, very thin, and it just does so much more. But I do love looking back and seeing, you know, just how far we've come, and also some of the things that maybe we've lost in the process. But I would love to know down in the comments if maybe you owned one of these, or you knew somebody who had one, or maybe you worked in IT and had to support it. I'd love to know down in the comments. And as always, guys, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care.